How often do you stop and think about where your food comes from? I don't mean from which grocery store or farmer's market. I mean from where on earth? Where did that strawberry sprout its first shoot? That steak came from a cow, of course, but on what patch of land did that animal stand and graze? Who nurtured that seed or watched over that calf to make sure that it made it from the farm to your table? California's Central Coast grows more food than most countries. 9 out of every 10 strawberries in the U.S. are grown somewhere along this coastline. San Luis Obispo County has crossed the $1 billion mark in agricultural value for the past 4 years in a row, and Ventura County produces more than $2 billion in crops every single year. In the 1870s, half of all Americans farmed, but today, just 2 million people, 2 million out of 320 million, are responsible for feeding the rest of us. But the numbers aren't the story here. The people are. Families, farmers, generations of them. People who made the decision to put their hands in this soil and take a stand on this coast. They dug in deep and they stayed. Today, you're going to meet some of them. Heidi Cummings, our first vice president and regional general manager, sits down with Daniel Sinton, a rancher whose family has been tending this land and raising cattle in San Luis Obispo County for 6 generations. We'll join the conversation between Brian Donovan, our regional commercial relationship manager, and Hank Laubacher Jr., whose great-grandfather made the journey here from West Ohio 4 generations ago and never looked back. And ARB's Vice President and Chief Agricultural Lending Officer, Ann Hansen, will get insights from Paul Clark, the Executive Director of the SLO Farm Bureau, an organization that has been the voice of ag in San Luis Obispo County for more than 100 years. 6 people, 3 conversations, all families who have lived and worked in this one place. This is Central Coast Pulse, the podcast of American Riviera Bank, where we talk about the issues that matter to the heart of California. We're going to start on the Oxnard Plains, near the often foggy coast of Ventura County. This is where Brian Donovan sat down with Hank Laubacher Jr., whose family has been farming this land for 4 generations.
My great-grandfather and his siblings were living in Ohio at the time, and one of his brothers was a Catholic priest, and he got sent out here to Oxnard to help start Santa Clara Church, which is still there. And then I think he came out here and was like, hey, this place is great, awesome weather, there's lots of farmland. And so they all made the pilgrimage out here, and my grandfather kept the farm going here, and then my dad and his brothers kept it going, and then we're still making it happen. And my dad would just bring me to work with him when I was a young boy, and he would be driving tractors, put me on his lap, and I would help him. I would drive it, and he would make the turns for me and operate the implements. And then slowly, as I got older, I think I was maybe driving tractors when I was 12 or so. I think a little bit at 10, and I just enjoyed going to work with him and being on the farm.
Wow, love the story, right, about the history and how we got here today, and just shows, the relationship with your dad, bringing you to work, introducing you to what he does, finding the passion to be able to keep that legacy going.
That legacy costs money to keep. The financial reality of farming on the Central Coast in 2026 is one that Brian Donovan understands, and one that Hank Laubacher navigates every single season.
Just farming in itself, it's cash intensive, right? There's a lot that goes into it up front. We have to have all of the supplies to be able to get the seed into the ground, water, and then you're vulnerable to whatever the weather conditions might be. We have all these costs that we have to manage before we pick one strawberry or other fruit and then get it to market. And we have no idea necessarily what the market price might be. Walk me through that just a little bit as a farmer. That's not an easy business to be able to predict after all the work and the expense goes in. I still don't know what I'm going to make.
Market conditions have changed, in the strawberry industry here in Oxnard. January through March used to be great pricing, and now there's competition or fruit coming in from Mexico and Florida during that time, pulling the prices down in the beginning, and that's when you could bring in some good money. And then
Yep.
Santa Maria, as you go north, the cooler it gets. The farther you go north along the coast, the cooler it gets. So they go later than us through the summertime, where it's a little too warm here the fruit gets soft for harvesting in the summer.
Yep.
So they are planting in Santa Maria, which is the next growing district north of us, varieties that produce earlier, and so they're kind of just squeezed. Our market window has been just squeezed way down. Basically, we've just been trying to adapt to all these changing markets. We've reduced our acres of winter berries down and over the last few years, and increased the summer because just the historical pricing's been better. Just trying to reduce the risk,
Yep.
and make it, adapt what we can.
From Oxnard, we're going to head north, up through Ventura, past Santa Barbara, and into the oak-filled hills of San Luis Obispo County. This is where Heidi Cummings chats with Daniel Sinton. His family has been ranching and farming this land for 6 generations.
We just crossed our 150th anniversary last year, so that's kind of cool. Started with my great-great-grandfather, Bernard Sinsheimer. He came from Germany, and his 2 half-brothers were here in San Luis Obispo already, and they had the Sinsheimer Brothers store down where Giuseppe's is now. And it was a general store, and there was a lot of trading and stuff like that was going on there. A lot of homesteaders would come in from the hinterlands and come in and get their beans for the year and other types of things to plant, and then they would go back out and plant those things and come back in. And they did a lot of that on trade, or on credit. So they take everything out, plant, come back in with whatever money they had from their crop, and that happened for a long time. And my great-great-grandfather Bernard, he ended up starting to accumulate different homesteads out there as just a really brittle, tough environment to farm in, and so it was tough for those folks to make it. And so they would come in and often couldn't pay their credit, and so he swapped deeds for that credit. And that's how we accumulated our 2 ranches. So we have 2 ranches here in the county. One is like southeast of Pozo, and that's called the Avenals Ranch. And then we have another ranch that's south of Shandon, and then we call that the Canyon Ranch.
So I have good memories of the store in San Luis. I used to love that store.
Yeah.
It took you back, to how it used to be in the past. So I miss having that in the community there.
The 150-year-old story of building something generation by generation is one thing. Sustaining it in today's market is quite another. Today's farmers need to work continually to find new solutions to stay in the game.
It's a very long and difficult process to bring meat to somebody's table, right? And it's been taken over by larger corporations along the way. And so as a rancher, it's really been our portion of that dollar has dwindled so much that we aren't making any money, and haven't for decades. And this new movement to be able for ranchers to be able to get directly to that consumer has been such a critical piece of kind of clawing back a little bit of profitability into the system. And on top of that, it's a lot of transparency, right? When you come to our butcher shop in Templeton or Paso Robles, or you buy from us online, I can tell you exactly where that cow came from. I know exactly where she lived her entire life or his entire life. And I know all of the inputs that went into it. Just the transparency that comes from single animal sourcing directly to the consumer is really amazing, but it takes a really long time. It's going to be years and years for us to raise the animal, and then the process to butcher that animal and bring it to your doorstep or to our shop is another whole lengthy process. With the USDA is very involved. There's a lot of animal welfare checks along the way, and then it takes 25 people within our butcher shop to get that animal processed into a cut. And so it's a lot of hands and a lot of years and a lot of time to produce something that's truly nutritious that people rely on and hopefully enjoy. But that new element of bringing it directly to the consumer and allowing us to gain back a little bit of the share of the dollar is I think the only way ranchers are going to survive in the future.
What Daniel is describing, the pressure on margins, the need to adapt, the question of whether the next generation can afford to take over, isn't unique to one ranch. It's the story of agriculture across the entire Central Coast. And nobody sees that picture more clearly than Paul Clark, the executive director of the SLO Farm Bureau. ARB's Ann Hansen sat down to talk with him about what the picture really looks like.
It looks like SLO County agriculture was above $1 billion in revenue for the fourth year in a row, as you know. I mean, it sounds like to the regular populace of the people that's a really amazing number, but is that an amazing number for a lot of reasons for your members, or does that match the reality, so to speak?
It does not. And, the crop report put out by the Ag Commissioner that comes up with this number is the first to say that this is strictly the farm gate value of our crops, meaning what is the value of the crop as it goes out the farm gate? Cost of inputs, the cost of labor, the cost of regulatory compliance, all of that affects the bottom line. And while markets for ag commodities have remained relatively flat, our our costs keep going up.
I feel like a lot of people, especially in the younger ages, are opting to leave this area and go somewhere else because they think it's going to be simpler regulatory wise, and they can get more with less. When a family farm disappears from this county, I know a lot gets lost, but from your side of things, what do you guys see when a family farm goes away and it goes to another corporation or gets developed, things like that? What changes from your guys' perspective?
Well, from our perspective, we're an organization where our strength comes from our members, and you see it not just here locally, but you see it across the state and the country, is that as the number of people involved in the production of food decrease, the more removed everyone else comes or becomes from the production of food, and that's then we have policymakers that do not understand or really feel like they don't need to understand because agriculture is not a big political force. But the impacts are staggering for us. And, from a more personal or emotional standpoint, that's our heritage in this county is the family farms, the family ranches, and, the kids look at how hard their parents have to work to farm and ranch, and they're thinking, yeah, maybe a career in software or a career in finance
Might not be so bad, huh?
might not be so bad, and it's kind of the evolution, really beginning since the founding of this country.
Agriculture on the Central Coast is more than an industry. It's an identity. It's what this place has always been, and what the people who live here have always chosen to do. Season after season, generation after generation.
It's just such a tight-knit community, and we're all there for each other, and we all, struggle through this. And it's not always a struggle there. I mean, especially if you're in the cattle business right now, it's pretty good.
Yes.
You can tell we're having a hot cattle market because all the ranchers are driving new pickups. But it's just this very closely knit community that comes together when someone needs help, and it's really satisfying to be a part of that.
We live and die by the ranch and the open space and the animals and the trees and all the things that are here, and we understand that it is our duty to maintain those things for ourselves and our future generations, but also for wildlife and the community at large.
Thank you to Daniel Sinton, Hank Laubacher Jr., and Paul Clark for sharing their stories, and to Heidi Cummings, Brian Donovan, and Ann Hansen for the conversations that made it possible. If you'd like to learn more about how you can support local agricultural businesses, visit us at americanriviera.bank and download our free Farm to Table guide, a resource for buying local, finding farmers markets, and using direct-to-consumer options for Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties. This has been Central Coast Pulse.